Hello, thank you for being here with us today. And we have Catherine Richman. She is an occupational therapist with a vast amount of experience with children across all age spans, ranging from babies to school-age children, and has sort of gotten into a niche or specialty of feeding and working with children who have different feeding issues going on. And one that we hear come up a lot in our therapy groups and in some of the mom groups, just among moms, is, and things we've experienced, I think, as moms at one point or another, is the subject of picky eaters. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And you just have a wealth of knowledge, and I wanted to have you on here to just give some good tips that I think would be really good for any parent. So I think the first thing I hear from a lot of parents is this normal?
Sure, it really depends. So toddlers, they go through that picky eating stage where they'll be eating all the normal foods, and then all of a sudden they stop, or they're not eating as much at dinner time or lunchtime, and they're eating big snacks. So that would be normal, that kind of regression. And what else is normal is that they eventually come back to those foods. They're not screaming, they're not upset. You just kind of let them be, and they'll figure it out on their own. Where it gets to be abnormal or really challenging is when the family starts feeling stressed. If mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, caregiver, they start feeling stressed about feeding their kid, then that's a problem. And some of those red flags, so that'd be my first clue in that something is going on, that maybe we can help in the family. But some other things that may clue me into something else is going on, where they are a selective eater, could be that they ate a lot of foods and now they took them out of their diet because they didn't feel like eating strawberries anymore, but they never returned to that strawberry that they used to love. Or they used to love all applesauce pouches, and now they only eat the Kirkland brand of applesauce pouch, and that's it. So it becomes brand specific. Sometimes we can see maybe a child isn't drinking enough. They start becoming really constipated. You're starting to see, or they never really got past that gagging stage of eating. So they're gagging, coughing, choking on foods, or you just had difficulty transitioning to solids can be another thing that can be really challenging. So if you hit that like 8-month mark and you're still not, your child isn't accepting any solids, or they're just really uncomfortable and you feel stressed about it, then that would be another time to call in a feeding therapist. And some other red flags I always look for is if a child's not self-feeding, if they are, there's just some medical complications. Maybe they were G-tube fed and now they're having difficulty just starting to eat solids again. That would be another reason to peek in on a feeding therapist, even if it's just for a consult, to ask, like, is this normal, or what can I do? The scheduling and evaluation is also another good step.
Yeah, just to ease our mom minds, I think sometimes, just and to not get all of our answers off of Google, or, because there's a lot of different opinions out there.
There are, and some wrong opinions too, which you have to be really careful about. Like some people say, oh, my kid will eat when they're hungry, and that's not always true. Sometimes there's actually something going on.
Yeah. What are some things that that you can recommend parents try right away at home for some common things that you see or hear complaints about?
So my number one piece of advice for this one is just to have low pressure meals. Don't say, oh, take another bite, or why aren't you eating anymore? Or isn't my food delicious? That's putting a lot of pressure on a child, and unnecessary pressure. So I like to remember that as the mom, so I have 3 kids. So as the mom, my job is to decide what and when a child can eat. And then the child gets to determine, their job is to determine whether or how much they're going to eat. So you don't have to worry like, oh, like, I think you're supposed to be eating 4 strawberries. You need to eat 4 strawberries. Like that's up to the child to decide whether or not they want to eat it. I'd also recommend no grazing throughout the day. So I know a lot of parents, it seems easier, like, oh, I just want to get the nutrition into my child. So I'm just going to leave goldfish out all the time, or I'm going to always just leave a bowl of clementines out for my child to eat all the time. I actually recommend feeding a child every 2.5 to 3 hours. Some kids you can start weaning out of that morning snack time and just have breakfast, lunch, snack, and then dinner. but we just want to make sure that there's eating and growing time. So a child knows that they're hungry and hunger is okay. To let them know, oh, it's time to eat, and they're able to eat that full meal with the family would be another suggestion.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Into those meal times.
Yeah.
And then when you have a picky eater, a child that doesn't want to eat the thing that you're cooking, if you're having to make a second meal for your child and that's stressing you out, if you're okay with it, run with it. But if that's just way too much for your family, I recommend involving your child in the meal preparation. So just as much exposure to food as possible. So let them help you grocery shop, let them help you cut up the carrots or rip the lettuce, or just scooping things at the dinner table and serving everybody their food.
And they love doing that stuff. So that's great. It can be therapeutic.
So I just had a little guy. There's these special cutting gloves that you can get for children and for adults as well. And so they aren't going to cut through their finger if they're using an adult-sized knife.
Oh, fun.
And so that can be a really great way to involve a child, because you're like, you're letting me use a vegetable peeler? Like, I see mom and dad do this all the time. I want to try something like that.
Awesome. Where do you get those gloves?
I always find them on Amazon. If you just say cutting gloves, and then you can look at the age range, that would be a great spot to get those things.
Yeah. Playing with food and helping in the kitchen, I think, are always good go-tos. That's great.
So I would, at every meal, have at least one of their safe foods. So if one of their safe foods is cheese, it's okay to put cheese on that plate, but then also serve the thing that you're having with your family. So if you are serving, I don't know, let's go crazy, like steak and mashed potatoes and green beans, fancy meal. And your child's like, mashed potatoes, those are ooey, they're gloopy and sticky, and steak smells funny, and that came from an animal. What you can do is put a piece of cheese, because you know that they like the cheese, and they can have as much cheese as they feel like they're going to be eating that cheese. Or if their safe vegetable is, I don't know, carrots with ranch, that's okay. And having those dippers is also good too. So just that exposure to new foods on the plate, but also helping them feel safe. Interestingly, some research says that if you position their non-preferred food closest to a child, then they're more likely to try it. So in my family, I always have
I think I lost
green
you
beans on there. And then a safe food for her would be something like apples. So I also put the safe food there. So safe food, semi-preferred food, and a non-preferred food.
I love that. And to go back to your idea about, or your dinner, about the mashed potatoes and the steak and green beans, they could help you prepare the potatoes even if they don't eat them, by peeling them. And so there's all that sensory exposure, which is, if you think about the feeding hierarchy, maybe you can explain that a little bit to parents.
Yes, but one way to expose children is just by, first, we want them to be able to touch it, to smell it, that they're okay seeing it. And as things get closer to our bodies, sometimes we get a little bit more uncomfortable. So if we can expose them to different foods in different ways as it gets closer to their body, so like our most sensitive part would be our mouth, just allowing them to feel like they have opportunity to engage with it at a little bit further a distance than just straight to their mouth. And also, I want to also kind of go on a little bit of a tangent here, but with those green beans and any type of vegetable, children often prefer things raw. So if you, just because it's crunchy, the texture doesn't change. So if you can present things raw, often a kid is more likely to try things than something looking slimy and limp.
Yeah, that's a good point. Really, really good advice. And I think, like you said, the biggest thing is if it gets stressful and if it's impacting your family, if mealtime is always stressful and there's arguing, and that's probably time to reach out and get some help.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you, Catherine, for being here. We do complimentary discovery calls with families. So if there is someone that's kind of on the fence or wants to speak about their child specifically, we would be happy, either Catherine or myself, to do that and kind of steer you in the right direction, or tell you you're doing okay and they're okay. Thank you.